The massive ships appeared in Earth's sky without warning. They blocked the sun over major cities, casting long shadows across terrified populations. Lieutenant Commander Allison Carter stood on the roof of the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, her eyes fixed on the enormous vessel hovering above Washington, D.C. The ship stretched for miles, its dark metal surface reflecting no light. "Commander, you need to see this," said Captain Greg Nelson, running toward her with a tablet in his hand. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." Allison took the tablet. On the screen, a reptilian face appeared. The creature had scales the color of burnished copper, with vertical pupils and yellow eyes. A series of bony ridges crowned its head like a natural helmet. "People of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "I am War Admiral Zexthar of the Valkyrian Empire. Your planet is now under our control. Resistance is not advised." The broadcast switched to footage of another planet. Allison watched as alien beings, not unlike humans, fired weapons at Valkyrian soldiers. The energy beams bounced harmlessly off the invaders' armor. Then the Valkyrians returned fire. Entire cities disappeared in flashes of light. "This was the Arcturian civilization," Zexthar's voice explained. "They believed they could fight us. They were wrong." More footage followed. Planet after planet, species after species, all falling to the Valkyrian forces. Some fought back. Some surrendered immediately. The result was always the same: complete Valkyrian victory. "We will meet with your leaders in 24 hours, Zexthar concluded. "Prepare your surrender terms." The broadcast ended. Allison handed the tablet back to Greg, her mind racing. "What do we do?" Greg asked, his voice barely audible. "We fight," Allison replied firmly. Greg shook his head. "Did you see what happened to those other planets? Their weapons were far more advanced than ours. If they couldn't win, then we'll have to be smarter," Allison cut him off. "Get me everything we have on those ships. Energy readings, communication patterns, anything. Within hours, Earth's military forces worldwide were on high alert. Fighter jets scrambled even though everyone knew they'd be useless against the alien ships. Nuclear missiles were readied, despite the certainty they would fail. Humanity prepared to fight, even as hope dwindled." The next day, Allison found herself inside the United Nations building in New York, part of the military delegation accompanying world leaders to meet the Valkyrians. The aliens had demanded this meeting happen in person. A flash of light filled the room and 3 Valkyrian warriors materialized. In person, they were even more intimidating than on screen. Each stood nearly 8 feet tall, their muscular bodies covered in copper scales. They wore armor that seemed to shimmer, changing color slightly as they moved. Their leader, Zexthar, stepped forward. The President of the United States stood to greet them. "On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to Earth. We hope we can establish peaceful—" Zexthar made a sound that took everyone a moment to recognize as laughter. The other warriors joined in. "Peace?" Zexthar said, his reptilian mouth forming the word awkwardly. "You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. This is your chance to surrender with dignity." He gestured and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed detailed images of Earth's military bases, nuclear facilities, and defense systems. "Your weapons are primitive, your defenses are weak, your technology is thousands of years behind ours." Zexthar's yellow eyes scanned the room. "We have conquered worlds far more advanced than yours." One of the other warriors stepped forward. His armor bore different markings, and a scar ran from his eye ridge down to his jaw. "I am Commander Drek Gore," he announced. "I will personally oversee the pacification of your world. To demonstrate our power, I invite you to use your strongest weapons against me." He spread his arms wide. "Right here. Right now." The room fell silent. The world leaders exchanged nervous glances. Finally, the Russian president nodded to one of his security officers. The man drew his sidearm and, after receiving confirmation from his leader, fired directly at Drek Gore's chest. The bullet struck the alien's armor and disintegrated, Not even a mark remained. Drekgor laughed. Is that all? Perhaps something stronger? A Chinese general stood up. With permission, he said to his president, who nodded. The general spoke into a communicator, in Chinese. Moments later, the building shook as something heavy landed outside. We have brought an experimental laser cannon, the general explained. It can cut through 6 feet of solid steel. Drekgor walked to the window and looked down at the weapon being deployed in the plaza below. Bring it in, he said. Or I can go to it. The weapon cannot be moved indoors, the general said. Then we shall give your people a proper demonstration. Drekgor turned to Zexithar, who nodded approval. The group moved outside. News cameras that had been covering the arrival of world leaders now focused on the bizarre scene unfolding. Drekgor stood 50 feet away from the massive laser cannon. The Chinese general gave orders and soldiers operated the weapon. A blinding beam of light shot forth, hitting Drekgor directly. The energy was so intense that humans had to look away. When the beam stopped, Drekgor remained standing, completely unharmed. His armor glowed slightly but showed no damage. Amusing, he said. What else do you have? Allison, who had been watching carefully, noticed something. When the laser hit, there was a brief fluctuation in the alien's armor. A slight pattern shift that nobody else seemed to catch. It was only for a split second, but it was there. Back inside, Zexithar addressed the silent human leaders. You have 1 week to surrender formally. After that, we begin colonization. Those who resist will be eliminated. He looked around the room. Any questions? Allison stepped forward, ignoring the warning look from her superior officer. What happens to us after surrender? Do we become slaves? Zexithar regarded her with what might have been amusement. The compliant will serve. The resistant will perish. The useful will have better lives than the useless. His gaze lingered on her. You have spirit. That is rare among conquered species. We're not conquered yet, Allison replied. This provoked more laughter from the Valkyrians. Drekgor walked over to Allison, towering above her. I like this one, he said to Zexithar. When this is over, I want her for my collection. You'll find humans harder to collect than you think, Allison said, meeting his gaze. Before Drekgor could respond, the Valkyrians disappeared in another flash of light. The room erupted in panicked conversation. As the world leaders argued about whether to fight or surrender, Allison slipped away. She had seen something no one else had noticed. It wasn't much, but it was hope. A tiny flaw in the supposedly perfect Valkyrian defense. She pulled out her phone and called a number few people knew existed. Dr. Winters, this is Lieutenant Commander Carter. Remember Project Thunderstrike? I think it's time to bring it back online. Allison drove her old Jeep through the Nevada desert, kicking up dust behind her. The road had disappeared miles ago. Now she followed coordinates on her GPS, heading toward a location that didn't exist on any official map. The sun was setting when she reached a rocky hillside that looked like every other rocky hillside in the area. She parked and walked to what appeared to be a solid rock wall. She placed her palm against the warm stone and waited. A hidden scanner read her handprint and DNA. With a low rumble, a section of rock slid aside, revealing a metal door. Allison entered quickly, and the rock face closed behind her. Inside, emergency. Lights cast a dim red glow along a concrete hallway. The facility had been shut down for years, but backup power systems still functioned. Allison walked through the silent corridors until she reached a large steel door marked Project Thunderstrike. Authorized personnel only. She entered another code and the door unlocked with a heavy clank. The room beyond was large and filled with dust-covered equipment. In the center sat a man in his 60s, gray hair wild and uncombed, working on a complex device spread across a table. I thought you wouldn't make it, Dr. Eric Winters said without looking up. The aliens are jamming some of the highways out of major cities. I took the back roads, Allison replied. Have you seen the broadcasts? Eric nodded. They want everyone to see their power. Classic intimidation tactics. He finally looked up at her. You said you saw something during their demonstration? Allison walked to his workbench. When the Chinese laser hit the alien's armor, there was a pattern shift, just for a split second, like a ripple in water. Eric's eyes lit up. Quantum harmonics, just like I theorized. He stood and moved to a large computer, wiping dust from the screen. If their armor and weapons operate on quantum principles, they're not actually impervious. They just exist slightly out of phase with our reality. Can we use that? Allison asked. Maybe. Eric began typing. Project Thunderstrike was designed to create controlled quantum disruptions. We abandoned it because it was too unpredictable. But if these Valkyrians are using quantum technology... He trailed off, lost in thought. The facility door opened again. Allison turned, her hand moving to her sidearm. 2 people entered, a woman in her 30s with dark hair tied back in a practical ponytail, and a young man who looked barely out of college. I called for help, Eric explained. Maya Rodriguez was my best communication student before the government shut us down. And Kyle Bennett is a genius with quantum engineering. I trust them completely. Maya nodded at Allison. Commander Carter, your reputation precedes you. What reputation is that? Allison asked. That you don't give up even when ordered to. Maya replied with a slight smile. Kyle was already examining the equipment. This tech is amazing. Primitive by today's standards, but the theoretical work is way ahead of its time. He looked at Eric. You really thought this could work? It did work, Eric said. Too well. The military got scared when they saw what it could do and shut us down. Allison's phone buzzed. She checked the screen, a news alert. The Valkyrians are making their move. They're destroying military installations as demonstrations of intent. She showed them the video. A Valkyrian ship hovered over a naval base in the Pacific. A beam of energy shot downward and ships began to explode. Within minutes, the entire base was gone. They're not waiting for surrender, Maya said quietly. That gives us less time, Allison replied. What do we need to make Thunderstrike operational? Eric sighed. Materials we don't have, for starters. The core element was experimental even back then. I might be able to help with that, said a new voice from the doorway. They all turned to see General Frank Donovan standing there. He was in his 50s with a stern face and the posture of someone used to being obeyed. Sir, Allison said, straightening instinctively. I can explain. Donovan held up his hand. Save it, Carter. I know what you're doing. I also know I denied your request to access this facility. He looked around the room. But that was before I watched aliens vaporize the Third Fleet. He placed a metal case on the table. After you left, I did some digging into Project Thunderstrike. Found these in deep storage. Thought you might need them. Eric opened the case and gasped. Inside were 12 glowing blue crystals, each about the size of a finger. Quantum crystals, he whispered. Where did you get these? Let's just say I called in every favor I had, Donovan replied. Will they help? Eric nodded excitedly. With these, we might actually have a chance. Then I'll leave you to it, Donovan said. Officially, I was never here, and this facility doesn't exist. Unofficially, you have whatever support I can provide without raising suspicion. He looked at Allison. The Joint Chiefs are preparing to surrender. They don't see any alternative. Give us 3 days, Allison said. Donovan nodded and left. The team immediately got to work. Eric and Kyle on the quantum device itself, Maya on communication systems, and Allison on tactical applications. For 2 days, they barely slept. The news grew worse. Valkyrian warriors were now beaming down to major cities, walking among humans like gods among ants. They allowed people to touch their armor, to fire weapons at them, always with the same result. The Valkyrians remained untouched, and human hope diminished. On the 3rd day, Allison received a call from Donovan. Carter, they've moved up their timeline. Drek Gore is making a personal appearance in downtown Las Vegas to accept the surrender of the Western states. He's asking for you specifically. Me? Allison frowned. Why? Apparently you made an impression. He says if you're not there, he'll level the city as an example. Allison looked at the device on their workbench. It was nearly complete, but they hadn't tested it yet. How much time do we have? She asked. 3 hours, Donovan replied. Not enough to finish your project. Maybe not the full project, Allison said, an idea forming. But maybe enough for a scanner. Eric, can we modify one of the prototypes to read their quantum frequency? Eric thought for a moment. Yes, but you'd need to get within 10 feet of one of them for it to work. That's not a problem, Allison said grimly. Apparently I've been invited to a surrender ceremony. Maya looked concerned. They'll scan you for weapons. This won't look like a weapon, Kyle said, already disassembling one of their smaller devices. I can hide it in a regular cell phone. It won't disrupt their armor, but it will read the exact frequency they're operating on. That's all we need, Allison said. Once we know their frequency, can you tune Thunderstrike to counter it? Eric nodded. With the right frequency, we could disrupt their entire defensive system. Allison stood up. Then let's get that scanner built. I have a date with an alien warlord. Las Vegas had changed in just a few days. The famous strip, usually bright with lights and packed with tourists, was now almost empty. The massive Valkyrian ship hanging in the sky above the city had that effect on people. Most had fled. Those who remained stayed inside, afraid of the alien warriors who now patrolled the streets. Allison walked alone down the center of Las Vegas Boulevard. She wore her military uniform, medals displayed on her chest. In her pocket was the modified cell phone Kyle had built. It looked normal, but contained sensitive equipment designed to scan and record the quantum frequency of Valkyrian technology. Remember, you need to get within 10 feet of Drek Gore, Eric's voice said through her earpiece. And the scan takes 8 seconds to complete. 8 seconds standing next to an alien who wants to add me to his collection, Allison muttered. No problem. She reached the designated meeting point, the large fountain in front of the Bellagio Hotel. The water was still today. The famous water show shut down since the invasion began. A group of Valkyrian warriors stood nearby, their copper scales gleaming in the sun. Among them was Drek Gore, easily identified by the scar on his face. As Allison approached, Drek Gore turned toward her. His yellow eyes narrowed. Lieutenant Commander Carter, he said, his voice low and rumbling. I wondered if you would come. You threatened to destroy the city, Allison replied calmly. I didn't have much choice. Drek Gore made the strange sound that passed for Valkyrian laughter. There is always choice. That is what makes crushing your spirit so satisfying. He walked closer to her, exactly what Allison wanted. She forced herself not to step back as he towered over her. She casually put her hand in her pocket and pressed the button on the modified phone, activating the scanner. 8 seconds. She reminded herself silently. Your leaders are wise to surrender, Drek Gore said. Though I confess I expected more resistance from your species. The others at least tried to fight. Maybe we're smarter than they were, Allison said, needing to keep him talking. Smarter? No. Your technology is primitive. Your weapons are useless against us. He leaned down, his face close to hers. But you have fire in your eyes. That is rare among the conquered. 5 seconds had passed. The scanner was still working. Allison needed to keep him close for just a bit longer. If I had a weapon that could hurt you, I would use it, she said, letting real anger show in her voice. Drek Gore touched her face with one clawed finger. That is why I wanted you here, to see that fire extinguished when you fully understand. Your helplessness. 8 seconds. The phone vibrated once in her pocket, signaling that the scan was complete. Allison had what they needed, but now she was in danger. She stepped back from Drek Gore's touch. The Western governments have authorized me to formally surrender our military forces as requested. Good. Drek Gore turned and gestured to his warriors. Bring the humans. From behind the fountain, a group of captured American soldiers was led forward. They looked beaten and exhausted. Allison recognized some of them. They were from her own unit. "What is this?" she demanded. "A demonstration," Drekgor said, his voice suddenly cold. "We know your leaders are stalling. We intercepted communications about a weapon being developed." Allison kept her face neutral even as her heart raced. "That's impossible. All our weapons were tried against you. Nothing worked." "Perhaps," Drekgor admitted, "but we prefer certainty." He pointed at the captured soldiers. "Tell me about this weapon, or they die one by one." "There is no weapon," Allison insisted. Drekgor nodded to one of his warriors who raised a strange-looking gun and fired. A bolt of energy struck one of the prisoners, who disappeared in a flash of light, leaving nothing behind. "The next one dies in 30 seconds, Drekgor said calmly. "Unless you speak." Allison's mind raced. She had the scan data they needed, but she had to get it back to the team. If she told the truth, the Valkyrians would destroy the lab before they could complete the Thunderstrike device. "Wait," she said, buying time. "I'll tell you." "I thought you might," Drekgor said, sounding pleased. "But not here," Allison continued. "The information is classified. I'll only speak to you alone." Drekgor considered this, then nodded. "Very well, but know that if you try anything, these humans will still die." He ordered his warriors to take the prisoners away, then turned back to Allison. "Now, speak." Allison reached slowly into her pocket, as if to pull out some information. Instead, she triggered the emergency signal on the phone, then threw it at Drekgor's feet. The device exploded in a flash of light, not powerful, enough to harm the alien, but enough to momentarily distract him. She turned and ran. Behind her, Drekgor roared in anger. Allison sprinted down the street, knowing she couldn't outrun him for long. The data from the scan had already been transmitted to Eric the moment it was completed, so her mission was technically successful. But now she needed to escape. A bolt of energy struck the ground near her feet. Allison changed direction, diving behind a parked car. More energy bolts followed, hitting the car and setting it on fire. She crawled to the next vehicle, staying low. "You disappoint me, human," Drekgor called out. "I thought you were smarter than this." Allison didn't respond. She continued moving from car to car, making her way toward a hotel entrance. If she could get inside, maybe she could lose him in the building. She was 10 feet from the door when a bolt hit her directly in the back. Pain exploded through her body. Allison fell to the ground, unable to move. The wound wasn't fatal. The Valkyrians wanted her alive, but it was excruciating. Drekgor walked up slowly and stood over her. "Did you really think you could escape?" Through the haze of pain, Allison smiled. "I wasn't trying to escape. I was buying time." At that moment, her earpiece crackled to life. Eric's voice came through, though only she could hear it. "We got it, Allison. The frequency scan worked perfectly. Kyle and I are recalibrating Thunderstrike now." Drekgor grabbed Allison and lifted her off the ground. "Whatever plan you had has failed. Now you will tell me everything before I take you to my ship as my trophy." "Go to hell," Allison managed to say through the pain. "After you," Drekgor replied. He barked an order in his own language, and 2 warriors approached. "Take her to the ship. Prepare for interrogation." As they dragged her away, Allison focused on one thought. The team had the data. Now it was a race against time. Could they finish Thunderstrike before the Valkyrians found the lab? And even if they did, would one experimental device be enough? Against an alien armada? Through the pain, Allison held on to hope. It wasn't much, but it was all humanity had left. Pain was the first thing Allison felt when she woke up. Her back burned where the energy bolt had hit her. She was lying on a cold metal surface in a small room with strange glowing walls. The Valkyrian ship, she realized. They had brought her aboard as Drekgor promised. She tried to sit up. Her hands were bound with some kind of energy cuff that hummed softly. The door to her cell had no visible handle or lock. She was trapped. "Good. You're awake," the voice came from behind her. Allison turned to see Drekgor entering through a door that appeared in the wall. It sealed seamlessly behind him. "Ready to tell me about this weapon your people are building?" he asked. "There is no weapon," Allison lied. Your intelligence is wrong. Drek Gore circled her slowly. Humans are poor liars. Your vital signs change when you speak untruths. He gestured to his helmet. My armor detects these changes. He stopped in front of her. We have located unusual energy signatures in the Nevada desert. Our ships are searching the area now. Allison's heart sank. They were looking for the lab. It was only a matter of time before they found it. Even if there was a weapon, she said, it wouldn't matter. Nothing we have can hurt you. Then why do you continue to resist? Drek Gore asked, genuinely curious. All other species surrender when they see our power. Allison looked him directly in the eyes, because that's what humans do. We fight even when we can't win. Drek Gore made a dismissive gesture. Pointless stubbornness. He moved toward the door. Think about what you wish to tell me. I will return soon. If you cooperate, your death will. Be quick, if not. He let the threat hang in the air as he left. As soon as he was gone, Allison began examining her cell more carefully. There had to be a way out. She noticed a small vent near the floor, not big enough to crawl through, but maybe big enough for something else. She worked her bound hands into her boot and pulled out a small metal object, an emergency locator beacon that General Donovan had given her before she left for Las Vegas. The Valkyrians had taken her phone but missed this. Allison activated the beacon and pushed it through the vent. It would send her location to Donovan. Not that he could rescue her from an alien ship, but at least he would know where she was. Meanwhile, in the Nevada desert, Eric, Maya, and Kyle worked frantically on the Thunderstrike device. The quantum frequency data from Allison's scan had given them exactly what they needed. The calibration is complete, Kyle said, making a final adjustment to the device. It was about the size of a microwave oven, with glowing blue crystals visible through a clear panel on one side. Will it work? Maya asked. Eric wiped sweat from his forehead. In theory, yes. The Valkyrian armor and weapons operate on a specific quantum frequency. Thunderstrike will generate a counter-frequency that should disrupt their technology. Should? Maya repeated. We haven't exactly had time to test it, Eric said, and we only have enough power for one shot. The facility door burst open and General Donovan rushed in. We've got trouble. Valkyrian ships are scanning the desert. They're looking for us. How long do we have? Kyle asked. Minutes, maybe, Donovan replied. And there's more. We just picked up an emergency beacon from Allison. She's alive, on their command ship. Eric looked at the Thunderstrike device. We need to move this to a place where it will have maximum effect. Washington, D.C., Donovan said immediately. The Valkyrians are gathering there tomorrow for Earth's formal surrender. Zexthar will be there along with most of their command staff. Perfect, Eric agreed. But how do we get this across the country with Valkyrian ships everywhere? Donovan smiled grimly. Leave that to me. Aboard the Valkyrian ship, Allison was brought to the bridge. Zexthar himself was waiting, along with Drekagor and several other warriors. Your beacon was detected, Zexthar told her. Did you think we would not notice such primitive technology? Allison said nothing. She hadn't expected the beacon to stay hidden for long. She just needed it to transmit her location. Your resistance ends tomorrow, Zexthar continued. We have arranged a formal surrender ceremony in your capital city. All human leaders will attend and pledge loyalty to the Valkyrian Empire. He pointed to a large screen showing a map of Earth. Red dots appeared across North America. We have located several energy signatures that could be weapon sites. They will all be destroyed within the hour. One of the dots was directly over the Nevada lab. Allison tried not to react, but her eyes lingered on it just a moment too long. Ah, Zexthar said, noticing her gaze. That one concerns you. He gave an order and the view zoomed in on the Nevada location. This will be our first target. On the screen, a Valkyrian ship moved into position above the lab. Allison watched, helpless, as the ship fired its weapons. The entire facility exploded in a massive fireball. No. The word escaped before she could stop it. Zexthar and Drekgor exchanged satisfied looks. So there was a weapon, Drekgor said. Now it is gone. Allison looked at the burning ruins on the screen and felt despair wash over her. Eric, Maya, Kyle, all gone. Thunderstrike destroyed before it could be used. Earth's last hope, extinguished. Tomorrow, you will accompany us to the surrender ceremony, Zexisthar told her. The humans will see that even their best warrior has been defeated. Allison was taken back to her cell. This time she didn't look for a way out. There was no point anymore. Hours passed. Then, to her surprise, the cell door opened. A Valkyrian warrior entered, but something was wrong. He moved strangely, uncertainly. Allison Carter? The warrior whispered in a human voice. Who are you? Allison asked, confused. The warrior removed his helmet, revealing a human face. General Donovan. How? Allison began. No time, Donovan cut her off. We captured this warrior when they attacked a decoy lab. The real lab was moved days ago. He used a device to remove her restraints. Thunderstrike is in position in Washington. Eric, Maya, and Kyle are there now. Hope surged through Allison. They're alive? The weapon wasn't destroyed? The Valkyrians destroyed an empty building, Donovan explained. We're launching a desperate counterattack tomorrow, but we need you there. He handed her a Valkyrian weapon. Can you walk? Allison stood, ignoring the pain in her back. Lead the way. One more thing, Donovan said. We've learned the Valkyrians are planning something big. After Earth surrenders, they plan to use our planet to test a new weapon, something that could destroy entire star systems. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. Allison gripped the alien weapon tightly. Then, we better not lose. Washington, D.C. looked different under the shadow of the massive Valkyrian command ship. The National Mall, usually filled with tourists, was now the site of Earth's surrender ceremony. Thousands of people had gathered, surrounded by Valkyrian warriors. Armed aliens stood guard around a large platform that had been built in front of the Lincoln Memorial. Zexthar and his commanders arrived first, teleporting onto the platform in a flash of light. Then came Earth's leaders, presidents, prime ministers, and military officials from around the world. Their faces showed defeat and resignation. Among the crowd, moving carefully to avoid detection, were Eric, Maya, and Kyle. They pushed a large cart covered with a tarp. Underneath was the Thunderstrike device, now fully assembled and ready. Are you sure this will work? Maya whispered as they positioned the cart near the edge of the crowd. The math is solid, Eric replied, though his voice betrayed his nervousness. If Allison's scan was accurate and if our calibrations are correct, it should disrupt their quantum field. That's a lot of ifs, Kyle said. It's all we've got, Eric reminded him. On the platform, Zexthar stepped forward to address the crowd. His voice was amplified so everyone could hear. People of Earth, he began. Today marks the end of your independence and the beginning of your service to the Valkyrian Empire. Your leaders have wisely chosen surrender over extinction. A murmur ran through the crowd. No one had truly accepted this fate, but what choice did they have? To show our dominance is complete, Zexithar continued. We bring you your fallen warrior. Another flash of light, and Drekagor appeared, holding Allison by the arm. The crowd gasped. Everyone recognized her from news reports as the officer who had stood up to the aliens. But something was wrong. This wasn't part of the plan. Donovan should have gotten Allison safely away from the ship. Had he been captured? Had their rescue attempt failed? Eric looked at Maya and Kyle in alarm. They've got Allison. We need to move now before... He stopped mid-sentence. Allison wasn't struggling against Drekagor's grip. In fact, she seemed almost relaxed, and when she turned slightly, Eric saw her wink toward the crowd. Wait, he said, understanding dawning. That's not Drekagor, it's Donovan in the armor. Their rescue plan hadn't failed. It had worked too well. Donovan and Allison had not only escaped the ship, but had somehow managed to impersonate a Valkyrian commander. They were now in perfect position for what came next. On the platform, the fake Drekagor pushed Allison forward. This human thought she could resist. he said in a passable imitation of the alien's voice. Now she will witness her world's submission. Zexthar seemed pleased. The ceremony will begin with the signing of surrender documents, he announced. Then we will demonstrate our new weapon, a quantum disruptor that will reconfigure your planet's core for our purposes. This was news. The Valkyrians weren't just planning to rule Earth, they were going to destroy it from within. Now, Eric whispered urgently. He pulled the tarp off the Thunderstrike device and began the activation sequence. Kyle helped while Maya kept watch. On the platform, Allison saw them. She needed to buy them time. Before you destroy our world, she called out loudly, drawing everyone's attention. I want to know why. Why Earth? There are countless planets in the galaxy. Zexthar looked at her with something like respect. Even now you still question. Very well, I will tell you. Your planet sits at a quantum junction point in space. The test we will conduct here will create a cascade effect that will allow us to control the fundamental forces of the universe itself. You'll kill billions of innocent beings, Allison said. Progress requires sacrifice. Zexthar replied coldly. The Valkyrian Empire will ascend to godhood while your species is remembered only as the foundation of our ultimate victory. As he spoke, Eric completed the activation sequence. The Thunderstrike device hummed to life, its blue crystals glowing brightly. Ready? He called to Allison. She nodded slightly, then turned to Donovan, still disguised as Drekgor. He understood the signal and moved closer to Zexthar. Something is wrong, one of the real Valkyrian commanders said suddenly, looking toward the crowd. That energy signature. Now! Allison shouted. Eric pressed the final button. The Thunderstrike device released a pulse of energy that swept across the mall. It was invisible to human eyes, but the effect on the Valkyrians was immediate. Their armor began to flicker and spark. The quantum field that made them invulnerable was collapsing. Zexthar screamed in rage and confusion as his own armor failed him. Donovan ripped off his stolen helmet and grabbed Zexthar before he could teleport away. This is for Earth, he growled, striking the alien leader with his own gauntlet. All around the mall, Valkyrian warriors found themselves suddenly vulnerable. Their weapons failed, their armor became dead weight. Human military forces, positioned secretly throughout the crowd, moved in. Allison jumped from the platform and ran to the Thunderstrike device. It worked, she shouted to Eric. Their technology is failing everywhere. Not just here, Maya said, looking at her tablet. Reports are coming in from around the world. The pulse traveled through their own communication network. All Valkyrian ships and weapons are down. In orbit, the massive alien vessels drifted powerless. On the ground, the once invincible warriors were being captured by human forces. The tide had turned completely. Zexthar, now restrained, looked at Allison with new understanding. One human, he said quietly. One human with the right knowledge brought down an empire that conquered 100 worlds. Not just one human, Allison corrected him, looking at Eric, Maya, Kyle, and Donovan. Humanity won because we work together. We adapt. We never give up even when all seems lost. She turned to face the crowd, which had erupted in cheers. The Valkyrians thought technology made them invincible, but they forgot something important. No defense is perfect. There's always a way to fight back. In the days that followed, Earth began to recover. The Valkyrian ships were studied, and their technology adapted for human use. The captured warriors were treated humanely, much to their surprise. As for Allison and her team, they became reluctant heroes. They had shown the galaxy something important. Never underestimate humanity. Other alien civilizations took notice. The species that had seemed so primitive, so easy to conquer, had defeated the mighty Valkyrian Empire. 1 month after the failed invasion, Allison stood on the rebuilt platform on the National Mall. This time she was there to address representatives from a dozen alien worlds who had come to establish peaceful relations with Earth. We don't seek conquest, she told them. We want to explore the stars as equals, not conquerors or servants. The Valkyrians made a critical mistake. They saw our technological limitations but missed our greatest strength, our spirit. They laughed at Earth right up until the moment one human showed them true power. As she spoke, the former Valkyrian ships, now repainted with Earth colors, flew overhead in a salute to humanity's victory and its new place among the stars.